first and foremost, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate you taking out time out of your day to do that.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So where are you located at?
I am currently based in Seattle, Washington.
Okay. How are things there with the virus and everything like that?
You know what? It's actually been it's been pretty quiet here. We went into some pretty tough restrictions early on.
Hmm.
So, I mean, things here, they're pretty open, but everyone's wearing masks, everyone's
Hmm.
taking protocols. I think kind of like everywhere now, right? You have people who are getting a little tired and just
Mm.
pandemic out, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
But the numbers and everything like that, they're not going crazy like they are in other places around the
Yeah.
country.
That's good because man, so we have so many like issues with like people getting upset with each other, like somebody's not wearing a mask, somebody's not wearing a mask properly, like all that stuff. People just getting into it, like in stores and other places like that. I guess you guys don't really have that going on there.
You know what is funny? Here I've noticed that people are very um how can I say this in a nice way?
You can say it anyway.
If you're not wearing a mask, like they will let you know like you're an asshole. Pretty much like there have been people where if you walk out to your car just to grab something, you're not wearing a mask, people give you the look like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, they're very, very kind of like taken back if you're not wearing a mask. So here it's totally different. I just got back from Texas not too long ago.
yeah.
And out there, if you're walking down the street without a mask on, people are just, going about their day, no big deal. But here, yeah, people you will definitely get side eyes and probably called out.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so my wife and I went to drop off some mail, and there was an old man that was going into a UPS store with no mask, and I'm like, you're like in the most category of people that should be wearing a mask. If
Yeah,
anybody should be wearing one, you should be. But people
yeah,
like I don't know what it is. It's like sometimes they just don't want to be told what to do. Well, it's better have a mask than a ventilator, right?
definitely. I'll take one. I'll definitely take that over the other.
So
Yeah.
how was like training during that time? You said like, they had some protocols. Like what about now? How's all that process for you?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So the gyms are now open. I want to say they reopened around July-ish timeframe.
Hmm.
But before that, everything shut down here. So I had to before everything closed, I'm like, let me just get some home equipment in. So I got some like the adjustable dumbbells in, resistance bands, kind of like this, the
Hmm.
adjustable
Hmm.
set, and just kind of made the best of a bad situation with doing home workouts and just having to really adapt to that. And then once the gyms reopened, I went back. So it was
Yeah.
probably, I want to say, several months of having to kind of muddle through the home workouts, which are kind of just tough, right? Because
Yeah.
I've never really been a home workout person, and just having to kind of get into that mindset of, okay, this is my escape time to work out, and I'm juggling working from home and everything else that you do at home.
Hmm.
Definitely was a little different. So
Gotcha.
glad
Gotcha.
to be.
Did you have like a space that you like dedicated to training, like a garage or something like that? Or do you just kind of do it like in the middle of your house?
Yeah, I wish I had a space, but no, I live in a Seattle-based townhome that is not that large. So pretty much had to repurpose my living room area downstairs to create like a training corner
Hmm.
so that I could have, like a dedicated space where I could work out. Luckily, before all this even happened, I had got a ARC trainer in January. I got off an offer up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I already had my cardio kind of figured out already because I just wanted that
Yeah.
anyway. So I really only had to get like an adjustable bench, the dumbbells, bands, and then I just made it rock with that.
Gotcha. Did you know? So let me ask you this: like, what division are you competing in?
Figure.
Figure. So, like, you carry, especially now to compare to years in the past, figure girls are carrying a lot more muscle now. You're along on par with that. Did you notice like much of a difference working out at home and then going back to the gym? As far as like, were you able to retain everything you had, or how did that work out for you?
Yeah, it was when I finally got back in the gym, I felt it. Those first several weeks of lifting were tough. Definitely my strength nearly wasn't where it was. I just think my body was just having to get reacclimated to just the intensity that I will be able to have at a gym. Home
Right.
workouts are great, but there's nothing like just having the machines that are supposed to be able to support you in the way that you need, right? So
Mm-hmm.
muscle loss wise though, I didn't notice a difference. And I can
Mm-hmm.
say that now that I'm leaned out because I'm getting ready to compete in about 5.5 weeks from now.
Oh wow.
And I
Okay.
thought that, yeah, I thought that I didn't have as a successful off season as I did, but now seeing my body now leaned out, I can definitely tell that we put on muscle, even with having to do home workouts for a little chunk of this year.
Right. I asked that because I kind of felt the similar, like when I was training at home during those months where the gyms were closed,
Mhm.
I felt like maybe I wasn't getting a good enough workout just physically and mentally. Like I was just kind of feeling
Yeah.
that way, but I didn't really lose anything. So, and that, and that, I thought that was interesting. Definitely like going back to the gym, like you said, like the strength kind of wasn't quite there. Like just there were some little
Yeah.
intricacies and differences, but as far as like actual physique difference, I didn't really notice much. So it goes to show you that like any situation that you come across, you can always find a way to you know be athletic and be fit and progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And then too, like I didn't fall into the trap that would have been easy to of the whole quarantine snacking. I didn't gain the quarantine 15. Granted, it's my off season, so I definitely enjoy things more
Hmm.
because I just could. But I think also what really helped was still being really structured around my nutrition and eating, so that I really wasn't starting my prep like behind the finish line.
Hmm. Do you always do that? Like, do you always like kind of stay on the more or less like leaner side? Don't try to gain as much weight.
Um, well, I don't know if I can make the claim that I always try to do it because this is my first time competing again in 10 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so 10 years ago when I competed, I definitely didn't have the mindset that I have now around stuff.
Hmm.
And I had a really bad rebound after I did junior nationals in 2010, gained a
Hmm.
ton of weight, and definitely did not control my nutrition. So going into prep after that, I had to work like quadruply hard just to be
Hmm.
able to get into like stage condition.
Hmm.
This time around, I didn't want that to happen. So after I competed in November of last year, I mean, I definitely enjoyed my off season. I put on about 30 pounds for my stage weight. Um,
Wow.
yeah, about 30 pounds when it was all said and done. But even then, it didn't get to the point where, I haven't had to do a really crazy drastic prep process to get
Hmm.
my body fat down to where I am now.
Yeah, I mean, you look pretty upbeat. I mean, for somebody who's 5 weeks out, you look pretty upbeat. So I would
Yeah, well,
say,
this helps.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so how did you like? So you said 10 years ago. Now you're competing. Now, how did you like get into training and fitness in general? Was it like a family thing that you guys did, or is this something you took up yourself?
Yeah, it was interesting. So growing up, I used to watch my mom get up at like 4:30 in the morning to work out. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. I will never do that. And I remember she joined this, I'm from Chicago. So she
Hmm.
joined this small studio in Chicago that really catered to bodybuilders. And one day I was like 13. She said, hey, come go to a show with me. I'm like, I don't want to go see that. I'm like, no, ew, I don't want to do that. Anyway, I went, this is way before I think Figure might have just been introduced back then.
All right.
But it's pretty much for women. We had women's bodybuilding and fitness, and then Figure was like brand new. There wasn't bikini. So I remember going to that show and I was just amazed at how these women looked. And I remember asking her, I'm like, can I look like that one day? And she was like, yeah, if you work at it. I'm like, okay, I want to join a gym. Because I went through like a kind of chunky phase when puberty
Hmm.
hit. Just
It,
things kind of caught up
it
with
just
me.
happens. Yeah.
It happens. Yeah, right. So as soon as I could, I joined the small studio that she was training out of, and I'm in love with it. Like I remember I would go after high school, I would just go there and just watch the trainers train clients just to see like what they were doing. So when I got my first job, it was actually there. And that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, I really want to do this. I'm getting on stage one day. And that's when I knew that I was going to eventually compete. And I went on to compete in 2009. So right when I graduated college, I did a show that year.
Mhm. Gotcha. So what was the reason for the big gap? Was there a reason?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So So I competed in 2009, did bikini back then because I wanted to do figure, just didn't have the muscularity to really do it. And I was going through a process where I was going on my way to doing 3 shows. Actually, I was getting ready for nationals in 2010, and my body just broke. Like I shared with you, I had that really bad rebound after junior nationals. That was my
Yeah.
second show I competed in. And it was to the point where I was just miserable. I was just hating life all around. And I told myself, I'm like, well, if this is how I have to feel to compete, then this is just not the sport for me.
Mm.
So I took 10 years off because I really just thought that I just didn't really have it in me any longer. And then throughout that time, I got back into the swing of training and I started seeing like the potential that my body could have. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could take another crack at this.
Mm-hmm.
And my boyfriend really encouraged me to give it another shot. But I knew I didn't want to compete in bikini again. I knew I wanted to be in figure where I always wanted to be. So I started working with my coach and we started like, okay, putting on muscle and just getting me ready. So I had my figure debut last year in November at the NPC Northwest in Shelton,
Mm-hmm.
Washington. And then, won the overall there and
Awesome.
getting ready for
Great.
nationals.
Awesome. Yeah. So how was the process for nationals been for you, like overall?
Yeah, overall, this has been a really good prep. Overall,
Mm.
I haven't run into well, I'm just, of course, I'm feeling it now, right? I'm 5.5 weeks out. So
Right.
you know how, like, that's part's inevitable. But for the most part, it's been a really good prep. But I think for me, this prep came at the perfect time because I mentally needed a distraction from everything that's going on in the world right now with 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it really has given me an outlet to kind of just really focus on just something else and focus on myself and really see how everything is really coming together.
Yeah.
So it's been a great prep so far. I
Yeah.
can't complain.
That's great. Do you usually have to how drastic do you have to go with your calories like to get really really to get you to that really lean look?
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm more structured in my off season or improvement season, wherever you want to call it. I
Hmm.
really don't have to do like crazy low calories, and we start my prep pretty far out. So, for example, like last year was an 8-month prep for the Northwest, and this year I started prepping for this show because it's 5.5 weeks from away. I started prepping for this show mid-May. So
Wow.
because I start so far out, it's a very gradual process. So we really don't have to get into the whole realm of like having to drastically cut stuff where I'm only eating, fish and asparagus for like 10 weeks, like I had to
Hmm.
do when I was getting ready for junior nationals.
Sure. So did you say I don't know if I misheard you, 8-month prep from
Yeah,
last year?
last year I prepped for 8 months.
Okay. So like when you have a prep that long, how often are changes being made to your like diet? Like is it just once a month or like as needed?
Yeah, my coach is very adaptive. So he makes changes to my diet as needed. They're not really like there were times when I went like at least a 6-7 week span with no changes because my body was progressing. I was getting leaner every week. It really wasn't a need to. There really isn't a one size fits all approach. We've made minimal changes to my diet this time around with prep. So it really just kind of depends on how my body is reacting and responding. But it's definitely not a frequent kind of thing where every other week I'm getting a new diet.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you what would you say is your best like your most improved, body part?
Oh, that's a good one. Um,
I knew I was gonna get one good one in there. That must be
oh
it.
yeah, that's a great one. Let me think. My most improved body part, I would have to say my shoulders, number
Mhm.
one, and then I'll follow my quads.
Your
Um,
quads.
yeah, definitely. I've noticed a lot of development with my shoulders, especially my rear delts. They really have like changed and just taken on an entirely different form than they had just not even a year ago,
Okay.
or let alone like 2 to 3 years ago. So I've seen a lot of improvement there. I've always loved my back. It's been one of my best attributes, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And quads have really come a long way. I'm starting to get a lot more dimension to them, which is
Gotcha.
exciting because that's what we're going for.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually that was the second question I was gonna ask you is what was like genetically superior like throughout your life, body, but we all have one, right? So you say your
Oh,
back, you've always had like a good back.
always. Like even when I was competing in bikini, I
Mhm.
remember my coach at the time really scaling back my back training because bikini girls, the backs are just not that developed.
Right.
So I mean, we went really, really light on my back, just because it just loves to put on muscle, which is great. I love it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely say back is my strongest body part.
Yeah. Let me. I was going to ask you. So you move, you go bikini originally, like then you get some muscle. You're in figure now. That's kind of where you want it to be. Is there any desire to go, beyond that? Would you ever do like physique or any other divisions?
Um, I I really think I will probably end up in figure only
Mhm.
because I know there's only so much muscle that I want to put on my frame because I'm tiny and I have
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm just shy of 5 feet. So I
Gotcha.
know that there's only a certain amount of muscle that I want to put on. And then when I also think about like what that will look like in terms of my off season and the weight I will have to carry at that, um,
Mhm.
I felt good in this past off season, but I know I wouldn't want to necessarily go higher than that. So
Gotcha.
probably figure I'm gonna ride on out there.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. What do you so like with the industry question? I guess let me hit you with this. Like, what do you think about all the divisions in the in body in fitness in general, but specifically to women? Like just added wellness. They brought back the female bodybuilding not that long ago. So now you have like a lot of divisions. I was just listening to a show by Dave Palumbo. He was talking about how he feels like the women's divisions are getting a little blurred. How do you feel about all those divisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great overall, right? Because I feel like it opens the door for women to pretty much see where they want to fall within the sport. Because
Hmm.
before, I mean, not every woman wants to put on the muscle that they need to do bodybuilding or physique or figure, right?
Right.
So that's where you kind of have bikini come in. It's in terms of wellness, I'm glad that we have it. I really am. I think it makes sense for us to have it. I think overall, my biggest, I'm not gonna say issue, but my biggest thing is it just seems like the judging at a certain level is hard to kind of tell with women what the judges are looking for,
Hmm.
right? Especially when you start looking at the variances and different, like from show to show, it can be kind of hard to kind of tell. And it's a little bit blurred, but I do think that it opens the door for more women to compete, which is great. So I'm
Yeah.
a fan of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had like a personal issue or someone that that's close that where they couldn't where they were being told let me put it this way without like getting into the like the weeds. I've heard several competitors on this show and otherwise spoken that they have trouble because they would be told like they need to improve on this on one show, then the next show they'll be told, oh well, you need to improve on this. So it gets hard to know like what the judges are looking for. Like, have you had that experience or know of people that have?
I definitely know people who have had that experience. I think for me, because I've only competed in what 3 shows now,
Hmm.
I haven't had that firsthand. I will say I do ask for judges' feedback after every show I compete in. So
Hmm.
I remember when I competed at Junior Nationals, I was pretty hard on stage. I was one of the hardest girls on stage, and at the time, I guess that just wasn't what they wanted with bikini, because they were still kind of figuring it out. And I remember getting feedback and just not really understanding how I could really use that to my advantage to improve. So I definitely can see what you're saying 100%. And I'll just be honest, when I'm looking at the girls, especially in my division, who are winning at the national level, the pro level, I mean, it's sometimes hard for me to tell who they're going to give it to. Like it really
Hmm.
is. So I can only imagine from a competitor standpoint when you get that feedback, what that must be like to know if you're on par with what the judges like that day or the judges that are going to show up that day right? So I can see it
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that it's hard to know who they're going to give it to. I was even thinking from the standpoint of just a few years of difference when you look at people like Aaron Stern and then Nicole Wilkins, who were winning, but going back and forth, and now the girls that are winning now. It, Aaron Stern and Nicole Wilkins probably wouldn't even like. I mean, they might place top five. I don't know, possibly. So the divisions have evolved so much. A lot of people are saying that they've evolved to the point where everyone's getting just bigger, more muscular, harder, bigger. Even the bikini girls, same way. What do you agree with that? And if so, do you think that's a good thing, or should they have some kind of way to scale it down?
Yeah, I definitely think overall, when I look at the figure girls from like 10 years ago to now, bigger, like 100%, right? The bikini girls, I think for a while they were coming in hard and bigger, but it seems like now, at least in the last year and a half, there been like this push to go for a more softer
Mm-hmm.
look.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're trying to get kind of back more to that, so that women can feel like, okay, well, this is an obtainable look I can have without having to put on a lot of muscle if they just don't desire to do that, or their bodies just don't naturally want to do that. But yeah, overall, I would say that, I mean, things are definitely getting bigger. Do I think it's a bad thing? I don't think so. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just my personal opinion, because my whole thing is, right, when you compete, your whole goal should be to improve your physique.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to bring more conditioning, what else can you do? Bring more muscularity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I personally feel, I don't think it's a bad thing that the trends are not kind of going towards bigger, but I do think there should be a line in the sand, so that you don't have figure girls starting to look like physique girls, and
Right.
physique girls starting to look like bodybuilders.
Right, right. Like with physique, you have Shanique Grant, who
Yeah.
who is a genetic phenomenon. Really, is what she is.
Oh,
But
right.
outside of her, um, then the rest of the girls, I mean, they could easily do well, in bodybuilding as well. Like so, it's just it does kind of like pose that problem for the organization. It's like, how do you manage that? It's, I don't know, it's probably a question that a lot smarter people than me can figure out, but it's definitely interesting for sure. Even with the men, it's everyone's just getting huge, so it
Yeah.
just depends. But I mean, but again, like you said, that's the goal, right? It's bodybuilding. So it's like, if you're just going to work out to stay the same, then what are you doing? So
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of see the point, right? Because I knew there were some competitors who, they're like, okay, well, this is my look. I don't want to put on any more muscle. I just kind of want to hang and maintain here and be competitive here. And I think that's great. But I think you'll have other competitors who will want to put on more muscle, and they'll have to make a decision. Do they want to stay in that same division or not? Or just kind
mhm.
of like stay where they're at.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let me ask you a couple more questions. I wanted to know your opinion on. So, Ashley Kaltwasser, there was a posted something a few weeks ago. It was basically about how some people were complaining that she was competing too much because she's already qualified for the Olympia and she's winning these shows, which they were saying is taking placings away from other competitors that could have qualified if she wasn't there. Um, what do you think about that? Do you think that there should be some kind of like rule where once you win, like I don't even know how that rule would go into play, but
Yeah.
any ideas?
Well, the thing is, right, I feel like people compete for so many different reasons. Like, some people, of course, at a certain level, you're competing to gain points so that you can, get to that stage. But other people just love to compete. And I don't think you should
Mhm.
necessarily take that away from them if they just would just want to get on stage as much as they possibly can, right? They're in shape, they want to get in the show. Go ahead and compete, because none of us are going to compete for forever. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? So I don't really think, I can see people being upset and pissed off that, hey, she's just coming on in and just taking stuff away from
Mhm.
people who actually could get those points. I get that. But at the same time, I mean, if she's winning, she's winning. I don't
Right.
think it should be up to someone to say, oh nope, you're winning too much. Go sit down, stay home. Like, I
Right.
don't I don't think that should be anyone's place to do that.
To me, it would, if they did something like that, it would completely like delegitimize the sport, because it's like now So now you're going to tell somebody who's just happens to be good, not that, you know, that they should only be good for a certain period of time and that's it. It's like, well, that nobody tells LeBron he needs to stop playing just because he wins another championship, you know? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So, and one more, last one I was thinking about this earlier. So you have somebody like Rami, and I don't know how much you've heard about this. He was supposed to compete at a show. He supposedly tested positive for COVID, so he has to back out. He has to qualify. From my understanding, he didn't. He doesn't get to go back automatically. Do you feel like because of the COVID situation and these prominent Olympians that we all know and kind of are famous, should he get like a special invite, or do you feel like you have to still requalify, just go to a different show? If he can't, he can't, you know?
You know, I think just due to the nature of people's sensitivity around COVID, right? It would be really hard for me to just say, "Oh yeah, you should just let him go," because
Mm-hmm.
then there are going to be some people who are just like, "Well, that's not really kind of fair."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't. I can. I guess it could go either way. If you really wanted it to be 100% fair, then you could say no, he has to qualify.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely like a decent viewpoint, because I mean, honestly, like if you go by the rules, you got to go by the rules, right? Just because you're sick,
Yeah.
it doesn't change anything, you
And
know?
and then the thing is, it's just kind of like we don't know how long this whole thing is going to be around or what the next thing is going to be. So
Mm-hmm.
if you alter the rules for this occasion, what happens when it's next year or 2 years on the line?
Sure.
Similar situation happens. Are you going to still make those same concessions? So I just kind of see it turning into like a slippery slope.
Right.
If you know what I mean, if you kind of
Yeah.
like let this one kind of like go, and then someone else can come back a couple of years later and say, "Oh, well, I mean, why should I have to do it?" And
Right.
that was the case in 2020. You
Very
know?
true. Very true. I don't think there's any right answers on this. I think it is just
Yeah.
one of those things where like you kind of have to like just think about it, brainstorm. I mean, we're not making the decisions, but yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if it wasn't COVID and it was something else that he was sick from, would you give him a special invite? You know, probably not, right? So yeah. So as going back to your competition, you're coming up here in 5 weeks. Do you also train people as well?
Yep. Full
Okay,
time.
awesome. So that's your full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So how did you? At what point did you get into training? Was it, from the beginning back then, or was this a recent endeavor that you got into?
Yeah, it's I actually started training fresh out of college. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, smack dab out of college, I just boom went and started working at a small training studio outside of Chicago.
Hmm.
So I started that 10 years ago, and that was before the world of online training. There wasn't even an Instagram around or anything like
Right.
that. So I didn't know anything about being able to have an online training business at the time. I thought I had to be in a studio 10 hours a day to bring in clients, make a living, and all that. So a few years after doing that, I was struggling. So with just building my clientele and just everything. So I went back into the workforce and I started doing marketing consultancy just so that I could bring in income. So I kind of got away from training, but I never stopped really working with people. I just wasn't really like marketing the fact that, hey, I'm this trainer that can help you out.
Mm.
And then did marketing for a few years, did consulting work at corporate America, worked at a couple of different Fortune 500 companies. And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to do my thing full time. And then I want to say in 2017, I started my online training business, and then it just started to grow and grow and grow. And now I have clients all over the country, and I work with clients locally here in the Seattle-based area too.
Okay. So are your local clients in person, or everything's online?
Some are, some aren't. So just with everything that's been kind of going on right now in the world, I've had a lot of people who I was seeing in person who have now transitioned to like virtual training. So I train them on Zoom, just like we're talking right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have like maybe a small number of clients that I still see face to face, but for the most part, everyone that I work with is now virtual.
Right. Who would have thought that? I mean, we were always like an online society, but now it's strictly online, right? Like, so
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's completely changed. I mean, it's completely changed the way I do business now
Yeah.
because so many people are now like, "Hey, well, can you just train me at home?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I guess if you want me
Yeah.
to." And people are like all over it now because it's so convenient.
Yeah. I think people didn't realize how easy and how efficient it is. Like for example, like my regular job that I work, I went home before COVID, like I started working from home. And so since COVID, everyone's in the company is working from home. So I don't see, I know a lot of companies have done that. I don't see us going back into the office, even if COVID goes away, because I think people are realizing that it's cheaper for the company. It's cheaper for us. Everything, excuse me, everything is just as efficient as it was if you were in the office. And the same, I feel like goes for, personal training is just as good. I mean, maybe you don't get that. I don't know. Like, I don't even know what you wouldn't get. I mean, I guess you get everything really.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard feedback from clients who I was training in person, whether I was training them at their home gyms or the studio that I trained in downtown Seattle, who have transitioned to virtual, and they're just like, "Oh my God, Britt, these workouts kick my ass at home." I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like as long as you have the direction, you can still have the intensity there that you need to have a great workout in.
Right.
So, and with people being a little just a little just cautious about wanting to be in public spaces anyway, having to do gym memberships and the protocols you have to do in gyms. People hate working out in masks. I get that. So, it sucks. So I definitely think it's here to stay.
Awesome.
100%.
Great. What do you think are your clientele? Are they mostly like lifestyle or are they competitors?
All lifestyle.
All lifestyle. So you don't deal with competitors at all.
No.
Is that by choice?
I have been asked, actually. I have been
Hmm.
asked, and I just haven't quite embraced the fact that I want to go into being a prep coach because
Hmm.
I know the kind of work I put into my lifestyle clients, and I know what I would need to put into my competition clients. And for me, I just enjoy working with lifestyle clients right now. So
Yeah.
I normally what happens is someone comes to me, I'm like, "Hey, I got the perfect coach for you," and I'll send them my coach's way, so they can go and get what they need from a competition standpoint.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna get somebody that's a competitor. They're not gonna do well, even though they didn't follow your direction, and then they're gonna blame you for it, and then they're gonna go to somebody else. That's because that's all I hear like happening all the time. So
Yeah,
it's a tough thing to get into because with everybody wanting to place high and blaming each other, lifestyle is definitely like the better way to go. And I feel like you get a lot more out of it because you'll see people be appreciative of the changes that they've made, with your help. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to go the lifestyle route anyway and not really focus on like competitors in the first place because I've gone through the process of gaining a bunch of weight, letting myself go, and I know what it was like to get to that point and to get
Hmm.
myself out of
Yeah.
that. And I love to help my clients get through that part of the process, right? So
Gotcha.
I just get more fulfillment out of that than I do, or at least I haven't worked with a competitor to know that. But
But
that's just kind of where I like to kind of be and position my business.
gotcha. Okay, awesome. So to this point, let's just go ahead and put your plugs in. If somebody wanted to reach out to you as far as like training, nutrition, anything they want to, contact you about, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on every social media platform as Britney Inez Rand. So that'd be the best way to do it. And then you can always send me a message.
Okay, awesome. And I'll tag everything in the bottom of this video. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on the show and greatly appreciate your time again.
Thanks. It was good talking
Thank.
to you.
Take care. Bye bye.